Testing. Can you hear me, Doug? Did you hear us? Okay. No, you shouldn't be sharing. I'll find out.
Jeff. Oh, there's an extra one on the table.
But you're not hearing? Okay.
Jeff. You mad at me? She's next to me.
Money through there. Whoop.
So much for science eight.
5:59.
Nothing. You make me nervous.
5:59. That's fast. We designed that just for you, Mr. Allen.
What's that?
We designed that just for you. Call the meeting to order. Start with Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation by word of life.
Pastor Bill Parks from Life Church in Mitchell, I invite you to pray with me. Good and gracious Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for your presence with us here this evening. We acknowledge our dependence upon you and look for you to provide wisdom and guidance today. We thank you for this beautiful community that we call home, and we ask your continued blessing upon every individual, young and old, every family, every business, and the great community of Mitchell. I ask that you would grant wisdom to those who serve in areas of leadership and decision making, and may we all follow your instructions to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. I ask all of this in the great name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Smith. Chart. Allen.
Here.
Barrington.
Here.
McCardle. Dosher. Rice.
Here.
Sabers.
We have a quorum. I want to point out to start tonight that we have a little bit different format in that the council has, we've changed the way the council setup is to get some social distancing. We do have audience members, but they are being held in the Corn Palace in the big seat so they can get social distancing, and they are watching it on either the big screen or screen that Doug has set up over there, which we appreciate him doing. There is the ability to contact council through YouTube, Facebook Live, email, text, or voicemail. We will do our best to answer any questions that come in or any comments that come in via those items. What we will do here is we get going under the public commentary. We will allow one person at a time to come in from the Corn Palace and give their commentary, and then they will be ushered back out, and the next person will be able to come in. So this will be a little bit time consuming tonight, but bear with us. All right? All right, approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing in the consent agenda may be removed by a city council member for discussion at the beginning of formal agenda items. Is there anything you wish to remove?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, a motion by Mrs. Sharp, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion?
Yeah, the Corn Palace road closure is pending government, no government action, I take it?
That is pending, yes, pending the ability to have the Corn Palace Festival. Currently, we anticipate things will be back to somewhat normal by then, but there's no guarantees. Mr. Greenway would speak to that, except he's out there ushering traffic for us.
I just got an email too saying the audio is horrible out there, so I can't hear it.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Kyle Croce, Public Works. Just wanted to make a clarification on item, it's actually item F. That is the work that is included on First Street now. It's an extension of the water line and storm sewer. There will be asphalt paving on that road, which we anticipate will be included in Phase 2. But we did want to make sure that it's not on the estimated change order, but it will be part of the Phase 2 project.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Allen.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
McCardle. Dosher. Rice.
Aye.
Sabers.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Chart. Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we're going to do a little bit different tonight. We are going to have an update on COVID-19 to start with, and Mr. Tom Clark from Avera Queen of Peace will start us off. Mr. Clark.
Thank you. Tom Clark, Regional President of Avera Queen of Peace. Completely lifting the restrictions that are now in place is kind of like not finishing your prescription of antibiotic when you're starting to feel a little bit better. For that reason, Avera and the medical staff at Avera Queen of Peace is supportive of continuing the social distancing actions you took a few weeks ago. This community has done an amazing job to date in practicing good hand hygiene and social distancing, which includes staying home whenever possible and limiting exposure to other people. Research and real-life observations shows that limiting exposure with actions such as this during pandemics certainly slows the spread of illness. However, we must not become complacent. I understand that you're getting pressure to relax the ordinance since we've only had 3 positive cases in Davidson County and no new cases in nearly a month. But make no mistake, there is no one in the medical community who doesn't believe we have positive, non-symptomatic, and symptomatic cases in our community. Take as an example the case of the restaurant worker reported last week in the Daily Republic. That individual works in our community but lives in another, so it doesn't get counted for Davidson County. We have also cared for positive cases at Avera Queen of Peace, but they were attributed to their home counties, not Davidson. Remember that due to a limited number of test kits and testing capacity, non-symptomatic and symptomatic people that are not in the high-risk groups are not getting tested. We have no idea what the true positive count is. We now have a much clearer picture of just how many people can be a positive carrier and show no signs of having the virus. We also now know that even those who show symptoms are actually shedding the virus 2 to 3 days before they become symptomatic. We live on I-90 where 3 million vehicles pass by each year, many stopping here to eat or refuel. We are only 65 miles from Sioux Falls, the latest hot spot for the entire country. How many people from our community work in Sioux Falls or travel there for business and then come home? How long before a non-symptomatic delivery driver comes to the region and contacts multiple people during the course of his or her route? Mitchell is an economic hub. Hundreds of people from outside Davidson County come here each day to work and shop. It is not just about what is happening in Davidson County. It is about what is happening all around us as part of a much broader societal perspective. Modeling from the state and within Avera still shows that the peak for this pandemic in South Dakota is possibly weeks away. But we have a chance to write how this story ends for Mitchell and Davidson County. Now is the time to double down as a community and do what is necessary to protect those who are vulnerable in our community and minimize the potential surge impact on our finite healthcare resources. Last time I spoke to you about this ordinance, I mentioned Huron. We saw firsthand the challenges that they faced as they became the initial ground zero, and their numbers rose to 21, including 2 deaths. What we have also witnessed, however, is how effective their city's action has been in nearly stopping the spread of the virus in their community. It is much more effective for us as a community to do the hard things now and minimize the impact as much as possible, as opposed to going back to life as normal and then experiencing the broader issue and impact of community spread. We have also learned from experience elsewhere the value of source control. Source control means everyone wears a mask, even if you're not symptomatic. Remember that the vast majority of people remain non-symptomatic or can be shedding the virus up to 2 or 3 days before showing symptoms and even after symptoms have disappeared. Wearing masks by all has proven to reduce the chance of spreading the virus. At the hospital, all patient-facing staff have been wearing masks and face shields for weeks. Beginning this week, we are rolling out masks for non-patient facing staff to wear, and we'll also be providing masks for any patients and visitors as they enter the hospital. We are now encouraging everyone to wear a mask when you're out of the house and around other people. It is important for our community to remember is that these actions are not about us. They are about a neighbor who may be elderly, or a friend who has underlying health conditions, or a family member who is immunocompromised. We might be symptom-free, yet carrying the virus and passing it along, and that's why social distancing is so important. I saw a meme on Facebook this weekend that said, and I quote, "Saying the curve is flattening and we can start lifting the restrictions now is the same as saying the parachute has slowed our rate of descent so we can take it off now." I encourage you to stay the course, at least for a few more weeks, until we see how the situation continues to unfold in Sioux Falls and around the state. The action taken by this council, as well as the compliance by our citizens, has and continues to help protect the health and well-being of our community. And Avera salutes you and encourages everyone to keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, what prompted this is we were approached last week by some business owners to reopen the bars and restaurants, which my response was not at this time. What we did have a discussion on it. We did tell them they could come here and voice their opinion, which I am expecting you're going to hear in the public commentary. Ahead of that, I want to point out that what we have since discussed is the possibility of, we watch the numbers every day. In Davidson County, obviously, knock on wood, we haven't had any changes, and we had 3, we were one of the first ones, we're still at 3, and 3 have recovered. We do have some open ones in surrounding counties, namely Sanborn and Minor. They each have 1 open. Hutchinson has had 3, I believe, and those 3 have recovered. McCook is all recovered with the exception of the 2 that passed away, or 1 that passed away. So, and of course, they don't include the ones that passed away as recovered. So that's why you see a skew in some of the numbers. What I'm looking at is we will continue to watch these numbers very closely. I have conference calls, well, it's turning into almost every other day with the governor and the mayors in the state, and we discuss what's going on. We want to continue to watch our numbers, the surrounding county numbers, those in Sioux Falls, Rapid City, the big cities, and see what's happening. If we continue to see it stay where it is, we will bring to you on May 4th, hopefully wording for some form of ordinance where we might be able to step up how we open these things rather than just go floodgates open. I have Mr. Johnson looking at ways to slowly open things back up in the city with, say, groups of 10 or less, social distancing, and all the things that seem to be working for us right now. However, they would allow some people back into the establishments. So, like I said, we're not proposing that this evening. We are going to continue for the next 2 weeks to look at the numbers. And part of that is because some of these people who have been in the community were in there within the last day or 2, and it really is a 14-day ordeal once you've had contact. So we want to make sure we don't have something that pushes the numbers up within the next 2 weeks. So having said that, if you have any questions or discussion on this item, happy to take it.
Mr. Mayor, the possible revision of an ordinance that might come into play as in lessening up to the 10 people or less, or maybe it might be more for Justin. Is that something that would require the 2 reading as we put this ordinance in place?
Yes, it would. And what we would do, we could have it so that the first reading could be May 4th, and then the second reading, we could set a special meeting in May if we see that things are stabilized and we're not having any increases, or we could let it sit until the second meeting in May for the second reading. Of course, that pushes us out another 2 weeks. So I think the big thing here is we watch what happens for the next 2 weeks, since we know we've had some visitors here with the virus, see where our numbers are, and then we can address this again May 4th with either a first reading or at least a discussion on an ordinance to slowly open the city back up.
I don't know if this is the correct place to bring this up, but I did have someone send me a copy of the contract, I guess, that they got from the golf course. And their concern was that at the clubhouse currently, it says that no more than 10 people at one time can be in the clubhouse at the golf course, and that it may change to only 2 customers allowed in the clubhouse at one time. And their concern was, if we are not letting restaurants and bars, then why are we letting people congregate in the clubhouse?
We don't let anybody in the clubhouse anymore. They have to go to the walk-up window outside. They ride in separate carts unless they're family members. Is that correct? So we have got social distancing going on at the clubhouse. It is exterior, it's outside, which makes a big difference as well.
Thank you. That was my understanding too, but so they sent me a copy of this. So thank you. We've actually removed all the tables. Can you come up to the podium so the people in the... Thank you.
Kevin Thurman, Golf and Cemetery Director. We've actually removed all the tables and chairs from the clubhouse, so there can be no congregation in there anymore. Walk-up service, they can come in and use the bathrooms, and those are immediately cleaned by staff. Anything that anybody touches when they come in the clubhouse to pay their fees is immediately cleaned upon leaving. And we have marks on the floor for people to stand social distancing while they're waiting to be served. No alcohol consumption in the building. It can be sold out through the window. We're trying to do everything we can, and like the Mayor said, one person per cart unless it's an immediate family member, and we're taking many other precautions also, so.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that.
Quick question, if we do another ordinance, what are we gonna do with that? We want certain things in it, like 10 people or less, and fines and this and that, so we're gonna send it to Justin, send it to Bob.
I think, send them to Justin, copy me, so I know what you're talking to Justin about. Is that okay with you, Justin?
Yeah, if there's any suggestions, you can send them to me and either copy the mayor in, or I can give him a summary of anything that comes in too, so.
The big thing, we want to make sure we have social distancing. You know, some of the bars are smaller than others. You know, take Marlin's, for instance. You could easily have more than 10 people in there and have a great deal of distance between. That's not a bar, it's a restaurant, but a great deal of distance between people. So we're trying to look at that as well. I mean, this isn't a simple, hey, this one ordinance fits everything. So we want to make sure we try to keep people apart with some social distancing and do everything we can to keep our numbers as low as we possibly can. Okay?
Mayor?
Yep.
We have some questions if we're going to allow public comment on this item,
Sure.
discussion item.
If they have something, let them. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Is somebody out there in the Corn Palace want to speak to this?
I'm waiting here.
I'm assuming there's a few that
I
like
was
to come
going to
in.
let them speak under the public commentary part, since they're really not updating us on COVID.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So I'll just say that it's during the public comment.
Correct.
Okay.
Because they're not going to give us any update on COVID, other than they don't like what's going on and they want us to open. So to me, they will be under public commentary. Okay?
I'm assuming then we're probably not going to comment after they have their discussion. So I'm going to hop in also and just indicate that many of you may have seen a press conference at the end of last week out in Washington, D.C. with President Trump and his administration has come through with what he envisions how things could start opening up. And he laid out a three-phase system. And I'm not saying that that has to specifically be exactly what Mitchell looks like, but it does make some sense. And I think maybe we can at least take that into consideration, that maybe that's a good start for a roadmap, because it does identify specific businesses and gives us what the rest of the country will probably look like, instead of us trying to invent what businesses should and should not. So just take that under advisement, Mayor, and if that's something that we want to incorporate 100% or start as a roadmap and then tailor it to Mitchell.
I think it'll be more of a roadmap than follow it. We don't fit every aspect of what President Trump put out there. So we will likely use that as a roadmap or take that into account as we go forward. So there is no easy solution to any of this.
Right.
Nothing like this has ever happened before. Let's pray it never happens again.
And this is a question more for Justin, is the fact that if we do decide to do some type of phasing and easing into this, can we incorporate that into the ordinance, or do we have to come back every time we want to do something different? So, you know what I mean, is 3 months from now the finish line? Who knows? It could be 3 weeks, 3 months, a year, whatever the case may be. But instead of coming back, just like Marty brought up, as the fact is we're replacing an ordinance, so it'll be first reading, second reading, and then approval, and then obviously needs to be published and so forth.
And that is what, as I understand it, that is what we have to do. So the first reading, then we would have to have our second reading, which would require the publishing of the notice. So, you know, you can't do them together. They would have to be some space between them. That's why we will have to address or discuss it. If we're going to do first reading on May 4th, we could have a special meeting on, say, I think it'd be May 7th, the earliest, wasn't it, Justin? We were trying to look at a timeline for all this, but, you know.
This has to be published in paper, and I believe that they're only going to be making papers the Wednesday and a Saturday.
We have the ability to take out a special ad to get it published
Yeah,
And electronic does, it
No.
doesn't. It has to be paper form?
right.
My
Oh,
understanding.
okay.
So that, we are limited on that. We might be able to get something in a little bit sooner, but they're still only publishing in a printed paper twice a week now.
So this would be a lot sooner if we put an insert.
But I don't know, Justin, if you understand what I was trying to get into on the difference. If we decide to do a phasing or staging or whatever, however you want to do it, can we incorporate all of those phases into one?
Into one ordinance?
Into one ordinance, so we don't have to continually have to come back and do this. Now, I don't know. I mean, I don't expect an answer right now, but it would be a lot easier for us if we could get to a point and even tell you as the mayor of when do you think we should have, or do you want more of the direction of the council? And that's, again, something to discuss when we come back in
Well,
May.
here's my point. I mean, you've given me the power to open things up, but the issue there is I can open it up in the next meeting. If 2/3 of you, or the majority of you don't agree with me, it closes again anyway. So it's ridiculous for me to think I've got the ability to open this if I don't know that I have your support for it to be open. All right? So for me to feel confident in opening things, I've got to know that the majority of the council is going to back that decision before I'm going to do anything. So it's kind of a cart before the horse kind of deal. So, and of course, you know, we've had discussions and whatnot as to where we're going with this, and there's no easy answer right now. So, Justin, can you answer as to the ordinance aspect of this?
I mean, we can sure to try and look at those options. I think it's going to be difficult if we're not able to identify beforehand certain criteria to move from one phase to the other. You know, it's a continuously changing landscape that we're looking at, so it's hard to know with any foresight when it's going to be the time to move from one phase to another. So I know that there is obviously some lag time between when you have a first reading and when it can go into effect. And I guess based off of what we're faced with the paper's new publishing period, that's probably going to be about 2 weeks from start to finish on that, even if we're doing special meetings.
Okay. And we could. Well, we could, but we got to be able to publish the agenda. And you know, if we open this thing and all of a sudden we see numbers start rising, we're going to shut her back down. So, I mean.
And I guess I'd like to comment on that. Now, I'm going to take a quote from the director at Sanford Health, who told Sioux Falls city councilors that the goal of implementing social distancing measures was to slow the spread of the coronavirus in the city so not to overwhelm the healthcare systems. Social distancing does not lessen the number of people who get sick. So we can't expect the number of people to get sick to be zero. It's going to be some number, and it's going to be some number for some period of time. Could be months. And if we think that number is going to go to zero before we open up, we won't be here.
You're right.
So it's
half this
not,
room could have it right now, and you not know.
It's not a matter of whether the number stays at 3 or doesn't go up. The number is going to go up. But if we wait till it's zero to open businesses, everyone will be bankrupt. So social distancing doesn't prevent the number of people that will be getting sick. It prevents the rate at which they will be getting sick. The area under the curve is the same. It's just spread out over a longer period of time. Social distancing, if there's 1,000 people projected to get sick, instead of having 1,000 people in 2 months get sick, 1,000 people in 4 months will get sick. But the same 1,000 people, or the probability of 1,000 people getting sick, is the same number. It does not go down with social distancing. So
And they feel we have flattened the curve at this point.
And we have flattened the curve. If you look at the website, the University of Wisconsin or Washington website, it puts South Dakota
out into June 22nd, potentially. Now, you compare that to, and what did I look at? It's either South Carolina or one of the other eastern states where they thought social distancing things could be relaxed as early as May 18th.
The governor predicted today that Sioux Falls will peak in mid-May, and that the rest of the state will be early June.
Yeah, that website has Sioux Falls resources peaking on May 18th. And that's the number of beds available, the number of ventilators available, and the number of people they think will be hospitalized. And at this point, Sioux Falls hospitals can handle the amount of people they think that will be requiring those services.
One more thought, Mr. Mayor. I have a little bit of concern about, obviously the timeline that we don't have complete control over, obviously, about how we can get the change in the ordinance or a new ordinance in place. Obviously, we know option number one is you lifting the ordinance, which make everything open immediately going on. And obviously, the next option for us is to put a new ordinance in place with obviously first reading and second reading. If we're waiting until May 4th for first reading, what I would personally like to see is if we can put some type of the revised ordinance that we believe is going to be step one in our minds, let's call it. I would rather see us try to do that first reading sooner than later, if it's a special meeting, as quick as next week, to the fact that the first reading is done. So the fact when we are ready to make that next step, all we have to do is the second reading. It could be the next council meeting, it could be another special meeting, but my point of the story is the action to get it in place will be a lot quicker because first reading has been done. The second reading can be 2 weeks later. It can be a month later. It's whatever we decide what it is, but at least number one is done, and number two can be as soon as possible, as soon as we elect it to be, instead of having to wait for first reading, the Republic, when we can get second reading, when we get published. I'm just saying trying to get one of the steps done earlier than the second one.
And that's fine, but our big issue right now is trying to figure out how to write this ordinance.
And I know
It
that's
may take us 2 weeks to get that done.
Well, thank God we got a great city attorney. I think he can get it done a little quicker.
Marty, the other
You make it sound like he has nothing else to do. Go ahead.
The other concern I have of that is and I've been tracking the numbers as everybody has. It's so fluid now. I don't know how you pick that first phase right now.
Well, and then
it changes every day.
Correct, but you could have one in place, and if that one that we have in place isn't the correct one because of the way things change, the first ordinance kills, and you put another one in place and do your first reading again. I'm just saying at least we have something in place just in case it is happen to be the right one. We rolled the dice correctly this time, kind of attitude. Us sitting here waiting is just, basically, like I said, you do that first ordinance, it's 2 more weeks out. I want to get something when we feel we're ready to go. All we have to do is do the second reading to try to get action in place a lot quicker for our community, the business owners, and everybody else involved.
We will see what we can do to get an ordinance going. Now, the only really, this is new territory for everybody. So if we look at cases we have, Sioux Falls started off, we were one of the first ones to have a case. And fortunately, we've only seen 3. Now, does that mean that's all we have? No, it doesn't. But I have no other guideline to follow. Okay? And I look at what's happening in the surrounding counties. Most of them have had a few, and they're recovered with the exception of Sanborn and Minor, which are both have, I think, at least 1 active at this point. I don't have any other parameter to really look at. I can't guess how many people have this. So what I'm doing is taking my meetings, my at least weekly conferences with the other mayors, looking at what's happening to us in the counties surrounding us, listening to what's happening in Sioux Falls, Rapid City, Yankton, and Watertown, which have the greater number at this point in time. And some of those have actually stabilized to an extent. Huron, for instance, they took off greatly, and they have seen no new cases for, I believe, 2 weeks now, and everybody, with the exception of the 2 deaths, have recovered. So I have to have some parameter to follow, and to me, that is the only thing I could find is somewhat concrete to be able to follow. All right?
I kind of agree with Marty, though. I think we should maybe get something in place sooner.
Okay.
Yeah, my mic is on.
Is it plugged in?
got a light on here, so it must be on. Is it on now? Better?
Swallow it.
Want this?
Here.
Yeah, you're coming through for some.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, I can tell this is on. I kind of agree with Marty that we should probably get something in place sooner than later, because, you know, when we shut it down, we did that, we got our first reading done right away, and then when it was time to shut down, we could do it quicker. So I think we should probably do something like we did at first reading, like we did the first go-around, for this go-around, kind of with the way Marty explained to do it.
We can do that. Let us get the ordinance and see where we're at.
I'll see if this one, yeah, this,
That one works, Yep. Give that back to Mr. Dosher in case he has. Let us see where we're at with the ordinance. We're working on it now, and we'll, you know, if we can bring it back next week and have a special meeting, we can do that. We can bring that out to you. Fair enough?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Okay, citizens anything else anybody wants to bring up on this? All right. Citizens input. If you need to address the mayor and members of council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium, state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken. I will point out that this may take a while because we do have people, I believe, in the Corn Palace waiting to speak. So, Mr. and Mrs. Mullen, one of you is first, I guess.
Hello, wow, that works. I'm Stephanie Moen. For those of you who don't know me, I work for the state of South Dakota. Oh, I work for the state of South Dakota, and my husband and I own a restaurant in town here as well. I love what Steve Rice had to say, because I hope that you understand the impact that has happened to our businesses. I'm very concerned about the number of people that are going to be bankrupt by the end of this. And even you guys, you're in charge of the budget, and I can't imagine the loss of money that even the city's going to have on the tax revenue and everything else. So I really hope you think about that, and I implore you, I love the ideas about getting ready to go back but to start back up again. But the city of Mitchell is just mortified right now about what's going on. So I really hope that I really think that what you should do is figure out some type of a fine for, I'm going to call her COVID number 3, who, you know, was tested on the later part of the week, went out partying, and then was confirmed. Those type of people should, in my eyes, who've endangered us, should be fined, an enormous fine. You know, I wouldn't worry so much about finding the businesses, but what about the people who go out there and purposely endanger us? I mean, to me, that somehow should be addressed. And then also, when you start back up, figure out a way that the public can be safe. So when they come into, I mean, our facility, I don't think that our facility should have been closed, or Marlin's or the Lake House. I thought Marlin's was doing an awesome job. If you went, we go out for breakfast every weekend. And if you walked into Marlin's, every other table had the chairs on top of it. So you were literally sitting from me to Mr. Dosher away, at least, having breakfast, because they were considerate of the fact that the public was very concerned about what was going on. It was very comfortable. And nobody got the COVID virus, even after the one person who went out partying all weekend long. So, I mean, I think it's working. It's working. But going back into it, what I would consider doing is, I'm a very conscious person. When they walk into a business, have a sanitizer there. Make sure that they sanitize when they touch money, when they leave the business, if they have something there so they can sanitize again, because that to me is what is going to stop the spread. You can get corona from on the public door handle. I mean, make sure that the businesses are wiping down their door handles and sanitizing after they touch money. I think that's what I have to say. Anything? Do I have any 3 minutes left?
I think you've used them, but.
And just, you know, I think there's a lot of hard feelings because a lot of us businesses feel like you shut us down, and we actually went carry out before you guys shut us down because, and it wasn't you that did it. I mean, the public was telling over time, you know, we're nervous about going out into public places, and so I don't know about your guys' income. I don't know where the budget comes from, but our income dropped 75%. We now make 10 or 20% of what we did in the year 2019-20. I mean, I don't know how you guys are going to do that with your budget, but we certainly, and I think every business in town is probably going through the same thing. So I just don't know how the city of Mitchell is going to recover from this because, I mean, I live in the city of Mitchell, and so I don't know. I'm just concerned about that. And then, anyway, I'm done. Any questions? Did I exceed my 3 minutes? Okay. Anybody have any questions? By the way, I did think Steve said it great. I mean, I think just, you know, ease into get a plan and get something going and get us back to work. Because, I mean, we lost 20 plus employees. That's 20 less people that are working. That's just one business that we have. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Bates?
Hi, Jason Bates, Big Dummies. I understand you guys have a difficult job, and your job is to protect the community, and it's not an easy one. But just by looking at those pictures, you're not protecting the community. That was Saturday at Menards, and I have seen in Walmart, Menards, other businesses in roughly the same square footage as my bar, 50, 60 people. So how can you in good conscience allow that, but you're shutting me down? You know, if you guys were to go out to Menards and say, we're closing you down, I would back you up. I'd have no problem with your decision. But you have to have a uniform application of an ordinance that of all individuals and business. You're not allowed to discriminate. And by closing small businesses and allowing that, you're discriminating against individuals and business. The definition of quarantine historically is a segmentation and detention of individuals carrying disease. We have no community spread, so we should not have a quarantine. You cannot quarantine people that are not sick, but that's what you're doing. People have the right to self-quarantine and isolate. If they feel like they need to stay home for their safety, they have absolutely that right, just as other people have the right to gather and to earn a living. I think we as a community are smart enough to keep our own safety in check and make a decision whether we need to stay home or go out. And just because we open restaurants and bars back up does not mean people have to come out. They still have the decision to stay home or come out if they want to. You know, I have a right to earn a living just as much as people have a right to stay home. And like I said, the thing that bothers me the most, in the same square footage at some of these places, I've seen 50, 60 people. But I can't have my business open. I don't think that's fair, and I think it's discrimination. So I hope that we get past this soon. And like I said, I know you guys have a tough job, but you cannot discriminate against individuals in business, and that's exactly what's happening. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Thanks for having me tonight.
Say your name.
Oh, yep. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Emily Hone, owner of Anytime Fitness. And I actually want to start with a quote from an article that was recently, I think like 5 days ago, published by the University of Virginia Health System. regular exercise may reduce the risk of acute respiratory distress syndrome, a major cause of death in patients with the COVID-19 virus, a top exercise researcher reports. He is urging people to exercise based on his findings, which also suggest a potential treatment approach. So I'm here tonight on behalf of Anytime Fitness and my members. Right now, more than ever, we need to be focusing on health, both physically and mentally. In the past 2 weeks, several members have but texted me, messaged me, and my staff expressing concerns for their mental health. It's not even the fact that they can't get in the doors, it's their mental health because they don't have their gym, their safe haven to go to anymore. For many folks, exercise is medicine and a way to cope with stress. Yes, we have moved a large majority of our personal training clients over to virtual coaching, over to Zoom, over to FaceTime, and that's been amazing. Unfortunately, that's only a small percentage of my membership base. You can move from home. There's no doubt about it. And with the weather getting nicer, you can move outside. But many folks need that escape from home to make them a better parent and a better spouse. Was mental health taken into consideration when adopting this ordinance? It's certainly an important factor to consider, especially right now because folks' stress levels are extremely high. I'm here basically just to offer some solutions for when we are permitted to reopen. I want to help slow the spread of COVID-19, but I also, I want to open my doors to be able to do that. Here's what Anytime Fitness is willing to do to help keep our community safe and our facility clean. If employees are sick, they stay home. We will strictly enforce, as we were before, the 10 or less people inside of the club. Our members are very understanding of that. It will be recommended that anyone that is at risk health-wise, obviously they self-isolate, which they should do anyway. There will be a suspension of all classes and large team trainings until further notice, as we have moved those all to virtual. And I'm also here to ask you if we can move some of those outdoors right now. That's a question that my attorney asked Mr. Johnson earlier today. If we maintain that social distancing, I suggested a spin class. We move our bikes outside. There is at least a 6-foot distance between those bikes, but we can still move. And it would be 10 or less. I only have 10 bikes anyway. So just a suggestion that, if we can move outdoors to a large, well-ventilated area. Every other cardio machine is marked non-use to keep that distance, and our already frequent cleaning schedule will be increased. These are some of the guidelines that I'm willing to implement, or continue implementing if permitted to reopen, and I'm absolutely willing to follow any other suggestions and guidelines that you guys have. My staff and I are working diligently to keep that place in tip-top shape every single day. We have individual equipment wipes rather than the spray bottle and the towels, and we're happy to do our part in slowing the spread. We just want to help the community of Mitchell get healthy and stay healthy, but I can't do that if my doors are closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily?
I have a question, please.
Yeah.
You had mentioned how some of the things that you might look at doing is making sure that sick employees are not working, stay home. Do you have a thought as how you would screen some of your customers?
If it came to it, we can temperature check everybody. I can shut my business down to one door only. I currently have a front fob scanner and a back fob scanner. I can turn that back one off. And we can screen, we have somebody sitting outside or out in our front lobby as people come in because we're counting. And we've asked people to not come in, but I would be happy to temperature check them. Our members are more than willing to do that. They've already suggested that to me. You can temperature check me. And I realize that may not, that may not tell you everybody that has the coronavirus because some people are asymptomatic, but, that's something that, if there are other suggestions, like I said, You know, if they have to bring their own mats in to use, absolutely, I'll take mine down until this is gone. You know, just practicing, you know, not sharing equipment, and that's what we had been doing before. So, yeah, just kind of maintaining some of those guidelines, and our members are very understanding of that. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sean Hohen. I'm here representing the Platinum Players Club. We were shut down 2 weeks ago now. We've had considerable loss of income. Our bar is different per se than a lot of bars in town because we're mainly a casino that has beer and some liquor for our players. With that being said, the payroll protection plan we're not eligible for it because more than 70% of our income comes from gaming. So we are paying our employees because they're essential to us and our business. So it's coming out of our pocket. We have no revenue coming in to cover that. We also use some of that revenue for health expenses. I have a diabetic daughter. What am I going to do when my diabetic daughter needs insulin? So for that reason, I'm asking you guys to amend the ordinance in some fashion that we could shut down every other machine, have a boundary, however it is. Maybe we can operate and still operate in the red, but not so deep in the red that we can't ever come out. Because what you're going to do to us is sink us.
Do you realize your daughter's in the predisposed group that could
I
get
do.
this thing? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you realize if I don't have insulin for her that she will die?
Well, you could very well bring it home to her.
I realize that.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure you
But
were
if
aware.
I don't bring home insulin, she's dead.
You bring home coronavirus, it
Then
might
she
kill her
might.
as well.
Yep.
So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take a chance here. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, my name is Dave Andrews. I was born and raised here. I was away for a few years. I came back. I don't plan on dying here. I would ask that the City Council be, instead of being reactive, be proactive and set an example for other cities in the state of South Dakota and other cities throughout the United States of America. One of the biggest hot spots that we have, if you want to call it that, if you will, is our grocery chain. Everyone has to eat. Every family sends a representative to the grocery store to pick up their daily needs or weekly needs. I believe in being proactive because I believe when this COVID virus appears to be fading away, we're all going to, there's a load off of our shoulders, and we're all going to think that, hey, that's great, that's over with. But I think that attitude is going to come back to bite us in the butt. I believe that any business who handles food, who makes food, and distribute it to the people of Mitchell, South Dakota, that they should have a mandatory mask provision put in place for all their employees.
They should be wearing gloves, even the delivery people. I was served a fountain pop the other day by a person who had been mopping the floor, took their gloves off, did not put gloves back on, and served me a 44-ounce beverage with their bare hands. This is not good practice. I ask that somehow you take into consideration the people in the city of Mitchell who are over the age 65, which I fit into. I'm in a very, very high risk group. I have 2 kinds of cancer, and I have aortic stenosis. And if I catch this virus, I'm most certainly done. And I don't want to be gone at the age of 67. I plan to live a good life. And when I drive around Lake Mitchell every day, on the weekends, are gatherings of people, 15 or 20 people, sitting outside in lawn chairs. I know that right now you can't do anything about that when it's on private land, but I do believe that there should be an ordinance in place that says that you cannot gather in groups of 10 or more. Most of the individuals I have seen are between, I would say, the ages of 18 and 25, who don't seem to be taking this virus seriously. If one of them catches the virus and doesn't have symptoms, one sneeze can make 500 people sick. That's how quick it spreads. I've seen it. I saw it over in Sioux Falls. I was tested, and thank God I tested negative. But I think it's time to put the foot down with a mandatory mask order for anybody who's out in public. Gloves when you're in a grocery store or handling food. And that goes for the delivery people also. People making the food, the people unloading the trucks. You go in businesses where they have the floor marked every 6 feet. People are not observing that. Things have been pretty slack. It's like, well, you know, hey, we had somebody from here, that came from Rapid City that passed away, and now it's gone. Well, that isn't the case. It will come back. When we have the attitude that we have right now, with these gatherings, not wearing gloves, not wearing masks, gathering at the grocery stores where everybody's handling everything, that's not going to cut it. It's going to come back, and it's going to bite you in the butt. That's my opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. State your name again when you get up there.
I'm Stephanie, and I realize that one of the previous people before me mentioned the Payment Protection Program, and I just wanted to let you guys know a little bit about that. It is not what people think it is. My experience with it, I applied for it right away. My banker told me that we're not eligible because my husband and I both own our business, and right now only single owner businesses are eligible for that money. So then on Tuesday, he says, hey, now you're eligible. Fill out the application and send it in. That was on Tuesday. On Thursday, he tells me that the $350 billion is already gone, but I should continue with my application just in case Congress gives us $250 more billion. So I just don't want you to believe that there's all this money out there to help people like us. And another thing, it's my understanding that 75% of the money that it is a loan, 75% of the money has to be used towards your employees.
Payroll.
And what they're wanting you to do is to keep your people employed so that they don't file unemployment. Well, Overton did not have the cash reserve to keep our 20-plus employees on the payroll. So I don't even know if when that money becomes eligible for us, if we can even use it, because we don't have employees anymore. If they give me that money, I will hire my employees back the day I can. But I also know my employees are out looking for jobs, and I don't even know if they're going to be there for me to hire back. Okay, I didn't mean to take up more of your time. I just want to stick that out there. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Doug said that there was no one else in the Corn Palace wanting to make a comment.
Online comment?
I do have I had one person. What we had asked is that anyone who wanted their comments read into the record, that they stated their name and that they would like to comment. There's lots of people commenting, but the only one that I got with that request would be, I'm trying to pull her name now. They're all going really fast. Hold on. Her first name is Angela. Oh, here we are. Angela Thompson, and she just said she has 3 kids that have an underlying health condition for the COVID-19 and do not want anything to change yet. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
I did state several times in the live chat that if they wanted their comment entered into the record, to state their name and their comment following their name. So
Okay.
That's the only one that we had. And we didn't have any on the text or the email.
Okay, thank you. I do have a proclamation for the Exchange Club. This is, of all things, this is their National Child Abuse Prevention Month. So whereas the City of Mitchell applauds the Exchange Club of Mitchell for its dedicated work in the prevention of child abuse in our community, and whereas the City of Mitchell commends the Mitchell Exchange Club for its tireless promotion of ongoing programs in our community, which are designed to help prevent child abuse, and whereas the City of Mitchell stands firmly on the side of prevention of any type of abuse and believes no child should endure verbal, emotional, or physical abuse for any reason, and whereas the National Exchange Club adopted the prevention of child abuse as its national project in 1979 in response to a request by its national president who, as a physician, noticed an increase in abuse cases in his medical practice. Since then, April has been designated as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and the City of Mitchell supports and encourages all of our residents and community leaders to wear blue each Monday in April in observance of Child Abuse Prevention Month. Now, therefore, I, Bob Everson, Mayor of the City of Mitchell, South Dakota, hereby proclaim the month of April to be Child Abuse Prevention Month in the City of Mitchell in recognition of our community to healthy, happy children, our commitment to healthy, happy children and to help eradicate child abuse in our community and support the efforts of the Exchange Club in Mitchell and all others who observe this important cause in their mission to bring awareness of this tragic problem to the forefront and to help make our community a stronger, more loving city where children will be able to grow and thrive without fear or harm. In testimony thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the City of Mitchell on this day of, on 20th day of April in the year 2020. Okay, and
Mayor,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I had one last comment. It was Tracy Loker and Teresa Hart that just said, think about our youth. We must get them active in all aspects, cheer to baseball to all summer activities, give them something to look forward to.
Okay. And that is one of the items that they're recommending not happen is youth activities. So,
And I did have one more comment. This is Stacy Banworth, and she wanted to address the gentleman, Dave Andrews, that talked about wearing gloves. She said, remember that mandatory gloves is not appropriate unless they're changed frequently, which is wasting our supplies. If everyone wears gloves, it only carries the germs further.
okay. One thing I do want to mention is the recycling program. We have been very successful. However, we are seeing a great deal of styrofoam get placed in the recycling bins. I would guess, namely because of the carry-out food items. Styrofoam is not a recyclable item. I also want to remind people that plastic bags are not recyclable. We do not want them in the recycle bin. Please place them in the garbage bin. So with that, does anybody else have anything for public commentary?
I got one thing. Friday night, they had a deal on Main Street. I just kind of stumbled into it, which was kind of cool. We were coming back from Colborn's and going down Main, and they had like the old 80s day, people going bumper to bumper up and down Main Street. It was packed from one end of Main to the other end of Main. It was, you remember those days, Jeff?
Just like the good old days. Yeah.
Just like the good old days.
That was the 70s.
I don't.
Huh?
You don't.
No, it was kind of neat to see that.
Marty was in diapers then.
Marty was just a little one. But somebody said they're going to do it every Friday, but I don't know if that's true or not. But it was kind of neat. It took about 10 minutes to go this way and 10 minutes to go that way, and turn around the old Sunshine parking lot and come back again. And
Used to be able to time the stoplights so you could hit them all at a certain
You couldn't
speed.
do that.
I remember
It was
those
too many
days.
people. But whoever did it was kind of a neat deal. So
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on. Table discussion on one-way versus two-way streets on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Avenues to June 1st of 2020. And the reason we tabled that is because we expect a great deal of people to show up, and obviously we wouldn't have the ability to do social distancing. I will point out that one more reason we're not in the Corn Palace tonight is they were doing the new basketball hoops for practice, and we did not expect them to be done in time. But being here in council chambers also allows us to do it on both of the television, the Mitchell Telecom and Midco, as well as YouTube and stream it live and everything else. It works very well with the internet. So anyway, that is why we're expecting to table this. We don't have the ability to put a number of people and keep them socially distanced.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to make a comment, and I need some input from you guys if we want to follow through with it or not. But, you know, we know with the last few months we've talked about one ways and two ways, and individuals came in and we kind of promised them and that in the April that's when we were going to bring it up, and obviously times have changed, and totally understand that hopefully by June things start loosening up a little bit. But one of the things I've been tossing around, and I actually visited with a couple council people, and again, don't know if there's support or not, but I'm going to throw one other suggestion out, and if you guys don't think it'll work, then I will then follow through with the motion for June. But we all know that this is obviously a topic that's very important to a lot of people in town, and the ones that live on one-way streets, they enjoy it and they love it, and they bought a house there for a reason. And I've never lived on one, but I know there's some people in the room that have, and I think we have to somewhat respect that there was a vote to this. And but in saying that, I like the downtown area, the fact that we do have two-way streets, because we are a tourist community, and it's just, to me, more inviting and easier to maneuver around. My suggestion, though, is maybe widening just a little bit from what we currently have, and actually taking it from Kimball to Sanborn, in which you basically there's a few houses sprinkled in there, but in all, in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, if you drive it, there's not a lot of residences. And to me, it supports probably business a little bit more. And actually, Steve brought up the fact to me, which made sense, is it would be nice for people to be able to access both the county courthouse and the public library that are on the fringes of what we're talking about here. So I don't know if you guys even want to discuss it, and I don't know if that would bring a lot of people in or not. I know it's a topic that does get a lot of consideration and a lot of following. But if you guys think it's okay, I really think that now's the time to be painting and putting up signs, and hopefully the tourists then will be coming, and we've got everything laid out, and it follows what we need as far as I think with the construction that's going on with Sanborn. So either the first or second meeting in May and be able to come back with that particular ordinance and saying that we're going to stretch the one-ways out just a little bit more and theoretically keep the residential areas the way they are. So you guys can comment or just say, let's do it June.
Well, I have been surprised at how many people who live on the one-way streets have reached out to me and said, I really want to encourage you to keep these two-way. So, I mean, I think that maybe we should consider, I mean, if we had a way of letting it be on a ballot again, I would be in favor of that. Because I think that it would be nice to see now that the people that live there, now that they've had a chance to live on those two-way streets, give them a chance to, you know, let the public decide again, because I feel like things have changed only in that we have given them a chance to experience what it's like. That said, I would definitely support, as an initial move, putting it as a from Sanborn to Kimball. I think that would be a good place to start, but I just wanted to make sure. Thinking back, I wish I'd kept a list, but I probably could compile one, but I've had several people reach out to me and say, we love having them two-way streets now, so. But I would support that, Jeff.
I like that idea. Jeff, you and I have talked about this, and I have no problem with that, bringing it up in May and starting an ordinance. Let's move on. We just keep tabling and tabling this, so let's just, maybe it won't go any farther than this, but I'm for it.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I definitely, respect your concerns of the number of people that would come on in. I think with Jeff's proposal, I don't think we'd have really a lot of people coming in for the amount that it will affect from the Minnesota to Kimball, not Minnesota, Sanborn to Kimball Street. I think that number would be a minimal amount for those that we could handle it, to have them come in and express their comments, if there really is much that would even show up, to be honest with you. As in the residential area, which will have, I believe, abundance of people, breaking that out if it had to be two possibly in June, or if it is a special election, or what, not a special election, but another election or not. But I do like the corridor idea of the Kimball down to Sanborn. I think it would be great for using the downtown businesses area the way it is, and I think it would be a great thing for our tourists. I know that's why we sort of looked at the one block off of Main Street, and I think it's now time to take that next step. Our tourists come in off of Sanborn. Sanborn has now been done down to 7th Street, and let's give them the option to go ahead and turn to the right, turn to the east, I should say, when they're ready to, and not say, oh, now I'm going down the wrong way again, to help the tourist out too. So I really do like the idea, Jeff, and I think I'd love to see something like that on the May 4th meeting.
Well, I'm in favor of it, but and for the items that Jeff and I talked about, being able to access the library and the county courthouse.
I lived on a one-way street for 25 years, and one of the main reasons I lived there is because it was a one-way street, and I guarantee you 90% of the people who live on the one-way streets live on there for that reason, that it's a one-way street. And when they still had church going at Holy Family, I drove down 3rd Street, and there is no way you could, it's hard enough to get one car down there, let alone a car and a bicycle. I mean, it's, when they have Saturday afternoon, or Saturday night mass or Sunday, there's no way you can get 2 cars down in front of Holy Family there on 2nd or 3rd Street. I took some pictures. I got that. There's no way you can do it. But I know the people who live on one-ways, they live on them for a reason, and I'm in favor of that also.
We can't take action tonight, but they could, in the motion, could they change it to bring it to the one of the May meetings, Justin?
We could table it to a different time, couldn't we?
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
Yep, you can table it to a different time.
Right.
And if you wanted to make a change to which streets would be designated as one-ways, that would be done through resolution. So whatever you guys table the discussion to, we could have a resolution brought at that same time with the new changes.
So if you want it to come in May, that would be your motion.
And I'd just recommend, if there's a member of the council that can follow up with Public Works. I know we talked here about wanting to do between Sanborn and
Minnesota.
And Minnesota.
Well, today, Kimball and Minnesota, or Kimball and
Kimball and
Sanborn.
Kimball and Sanborn, okay.
Yeah.
But I know that, back when we were, initially discussing this and the Sanborn, construction project, there was some on the other side of Sanborn. So we just want to, if we're going to bring a resolution, we want to be clear on what areas are going to be moved back or stay the same, or,
And-
just so we can keep that clear.
And are you going to want to keep that two-way through the 7th intersection being completed on Minnesota, since you'll have some, you know, the 7th intersection that they're doing on Sanborn is the first phase of the project,
Mhm.
so you could have it go into
Yep,
effect when that opens?
And I've got thoughts about that. When we had 7th Avenue closed completely in 2014, none of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th were all one-way streets. And we didn't have any issue with people moving back and forth. So, right, and so 7th Avenue from Taco John's to past Minnesota was closed for 5.5 months, and 2nd, 3rd, and 4th were all one-way.
Yeah, I was forgetting that Sanborn's actually open now up to 7th. I was thinking that would be closed too.
So I don't see any reason to have them two-way streets from Minnesota to Sanborn while construction is going on, because the traffic flow isn't there since Sanborn's open to 7th, or actually 6th until they get that first part done.
I agree with Steve there.
Is 6 two-way or one-way? Oh, it's two-way too. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5th and 6th.
So 2nd, 3rd, and 4th are one way.
Make motion.
Right. Okay.
I'm a little hesitant to make the motion to bring it to May 4th because of other discussion items we might have on May 4th. But I'll move the table till May 4th, and we can always bump that if we learn something else in the next 2 weeks related to coronavirus.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Rice,
I-
second by Mr. Allen.
And I was just going to comment too, that I think this is, I think this is the people that live south of Sanborn. It'll put some closure to what they're concerned about. And then if there's individuals that get a hold of us and they are discussing the two ways, then they're going to have to find an avenue of how that could change. And we'll just put it into their laps. The one-way supporters carried a petition, and we got a public vote. It was probably it was in a June election, and so it is what it is. And so if the individuals that in town are thinking that they would support the two-way of switching, then we'll put it on them if they want to go ahead and try to approach to do something either through the council or as a vote. So that, as far as I'm concerned, this is done. If we get this through, we're done with it, unless somebody out there wants to bring it up, and then they're going to have to investigate of how they can actually approach this.
So Steve, with clarification, your motion is to table to May 4th.
To May
The fact
4th.
that coming back with a resolution that says the two-way streets will be from
Kimball to Sanborn.
Kimball to Sanborn.
Sanborn. Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that it's very clear to the public, so we don't have a room full of people thinking they're here because they live on the 500 block of East Third or something like that. That's what I'm trying to get at. So we were talking about a very specific area which has very minimal residential.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Kyle Crutchy from Public Works. With that motion, then west side of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, that is west of Sanborn, would revert back to one way.
Correct.
Just want to make sure that clear.
Okay, anything else? Further discussion? I'd ask the audience, but it's all city people. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve amendment number 1 to agreement A 2018-23 East Central Drainage Basin Improvements Phase 1 to SPN and Associates. Mr. Croce.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is a request for additional funds, change order for SPN in the amount of $7,320 to their original contract for East Central Drainage Basin Phase 1. This would include construction and engineering services for the additional work at Fur, Duff, and Raleigh. So we recommend the council approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address it? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. I guess I should ask if there's any comments on the internet. Ms. Elwine? Okay,
They are behind, but, no, I don't have any new comments.
okay. I'll try to remember that in the future. Okay. Are they?
I think just at the end of the meeting, you can, I stated earlier on here that any comments were going to be taken during the citizen input on any item on the agenda.
Oh, all right.
So I read everything that we had at that time. I have stated on here that I'll provide a copy of the chat log to council after the meeting, so.
Okay, thank you. Action to approve amendment number 1, Agreement A 2020-03, Geocom Dispatch Mapping Software. Mr. Johnson, are you speaking to this one?
Yeah, I believe that the first Geocom agreement here that you have is just an amendment. Essentially, the change is just lowering the price.
So,
I guess just,
yeah, so it went down and the first payment will be attributed to payment that's already there, is that what it? $1,995 will be credited on the 12,000, and for some reason, the quote they gave us went down.
well, yeah, just if you remember
Thinking
back
that's
to
a good thing.
January, Public Safety's been in the process of switching this over
Yep.
to a newer version of the system. So I believe that there was less work that they needed to do to make the transition. So that's where you see the price difference.
Okay. Move to approve 2020-03.
Okay, motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mrs. Turks. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A 2020-18, Interim Dispatch Mapping Support GIS Maintenance Project.
And this is along the same line. It's in relation to the same project. In the time it has taken them to switch over from the old version to the new version, they still needed to provide continuing services of the old system that they were working with. And this allows them to bridge that gap.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Agreement A 2020-16, Mitchell Regional Airport to allow a second aerial applicator, Dakota Pro Ag Spraying Service. Mr. Croce.
Mr. Mayor and Council, so this is a second aerial applicator that has come to the Mitchell area, Mitchell Regional Airport. The first one that we have is AgTegra, and that is a continuing contract or a yearly recurring contract. They've been with the Mitchell Regional Airport for years. We feel that we do have room for 2 applicators. The second applicator would have 2 aircraft and 2 pilots. And this Dakota Pro Ag Spraying Service is the second applicator. Basically, pending any submittal of insurance bond and then the cleanup deposit, we recommend that City Council approve the second applicator.
It's good to have competition. I like that. Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allen.
Second.
Second by Mr.
It's
McCardle.
a good thing for our airport, isn't it?
It is a good thing for our airport. The only thing that I'd like to say is that we would bring any other additional to council. We would have any additional contractors or companies that want to do the spraying. We would bring that to council. Sometimes at the end of the year, we have people saying, hey, can we get this done? They don't have the insurance or the bond, and they don't have the cleanup fee. And again, we like this policy to bring it to council for approval.
And you've never had any problem with AgTegra?
We have not.
They're
No.
good to work with.
Yes, sir.
Okay, further discussion?
Dan, are you running unopposed?
Right now.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Okay, with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Chuck.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Action to approve Agreement A 2017 Airport Runway Reconstruction Design Independent Fee Evaluation with Mead and Hunter. Mr. Croce.
Mr. Mayor and Council, so this is the independent fee evaluation that is required by the FAA to make sure that the consultant is giving us a fair price on their work. We're having that work done by Helms. They've been selected for the planning as the planning consultant for the Mitchell Regional Airport. This independent fee evaluation is in an amount not to exceed $3,500. The FAA pays for 95% of that cost, state pays for 5%, and local matches 5%.
Move approval of 2020-17.
Motion by Mr. Rice,
Second.
second Mrs. Charks. Further discussion?
Yeah, question. And so Helms, we picked Helms in order to do this. This is runway decoupling and all the other stuff that we hope to go on. And that's 2021 or 2022
That is
by the time?
that will happen this calendar year. We'll have the grant approved by May timeframe, so that they will be underway this year and
This year?
the calendar. I mean the next
Will
fiscal year
actual
is June, but
construction happen this
No.
calendar? No.
no, the master
Design will be
planning.
right now.
Yeah,
Design will
design
be
is
current.
now.
The
first.
design will occur this year, the planning
Okay.
will occur this year, yeah. Additionally, I did want to mention that through the CARES Act of 2020, it's possible that we may get 100% of those funds for the master plan by the FAA, which is good. If not, we would be responsible for 5%, but we're looking to get those funds by the FAA. Additionally, we did get eligible for $69,000 for operating funds as well. So we'll apply for that.
We're gonna need it. Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to award bid for paving and overlay project 2020-15. Mr. Schrader.
Joe Schrader, City Engineer. Mr. Mayor, Council. Bids were open on April 3rd in City Hall Council Chambers at 1:30. One bid was received by Commercial Asphalt. Bid Schedule A had a total price of $943,354. Bid Schedule B was $60 per ton for the city to pick up at Commercial Asphalt's plant. The bid tabulation was attached. We recommend awarding Bid Schedule A to Commercial Asphalt for a total price of $943,354, and Bid Schedule B for a unit price of $60 per ton. It should be noted that this year's overall asphalt price was $2.07 cheaper than last year, and we do plan to be on budget as far as quantities go.
This is gonna go from 7th Street north,
This will get Main Street potholes fixed.
from,
North Main.
yeah, from 7th Street.
Yes.
north.
To the bypass.
To the concrete, to the concrete surface.
Yeah.
Bypass.
Be nice.
What do we have budgeted for that?
That was what was
I
at the
just
top.
had it pulled up there.
You're $50,000 under Schedule B and
I think the important thing to point out on this item too is that the funds that we use to do this project comes from the state. It's our STIP money. We did not have all of this planned to come out of STIP funds, but we are going to use some of the STIP funds in reserve to offset this. And those funds can only be used for road maintenance. So it's not operational expense on sales tax.
Joe, is this similar to what we did last year with the total pavement, feet or blocks, or,
I believe it's more than last year.
this is more?
Yes.
Oh, good.
and this will take
Right.
care of the potholes
Yeah.
up on North.
I got it, yeah.
And one thing should be noted is the reason they haven't been done yet is
Yeah.
because the asphalt plant has not opened because of the temperatures outside.
Okay, a couple of comments, and Danny alludes to one of yours, the amount of work that it is to, I think it's great, I just hope we can get it all done, is one comment. And with West Texas crude going negative today, is there the potential that the asphalt prices will go down in the future? And that,
Not this year. On any future bid projects, possibly, but this would be the price for the year. For our city projects, yes.
Yeah, before long, they'll be paying us to take it. We could use that.
Monthly contract runs out tomorrow, and
Yeah.
probably go back up to about $20, but.
They figured 21 for sure. So. Negative, yeah, sure.
I'll make a motion to approve before I have to put in a alignment shop at the north end of town.
Second. Motion by Mr. McCardle. Who seconded that? Mr. Barrington? Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2020-17, a plat of Lot 9 of the replat of Track E, Wild Oak Golf Club addition to the City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Mr. Putnam.
Mayor and council, if you saw in the planning commission minutes that were included in your package, you would see the planning commission did recommend this plat. This is in the Wild Oak development. You probably can see that it kind of fits in between a couple houses. So, and it was unanimously recommended approval. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Sabers. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2020-18, a plat of Lot 2, Block 1 of Woodland Heights, First Edition. A subdivision of Lot 2, Cranes Edition of the southeast quarter, Section 34, Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, if you noticed in the planning commission minutes that they did recommend approval, this is part of the Ethan Lumber project on the south side of town. This is on that row of duplexes that are off of Capitol Street. And again, you can kind of see that it does follow the master plan. I'd also might want to add, this is just as a refresher that this is located within that TIF district just to the south. So.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Chark, second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2020-19, a plat of Lot A1 in McCabe Street, a subdivision of lots A and H, Block 8, Sunnyside Addition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, the planning commission did recommend approval of this plat. If you notice that on the aerial or as well as the plat as well, that this is basically to install the public right-of-way extending McCabe across as well. The county will retain A1, which is for future snow removal. So this is just to install the right-of-way, and again, they will.
This is just south.
Correct. As you can, let's see if you can pull the aerial, maybe that might help.
20.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry, 20, or 19. Yeah, my fault. I told you 20. We're just checking to see how alert you are.
Yeah, no. Right. So as you can see, there's the right-of-way there is on McCabe. 2 yards on your left is the public safety center. And basically it connects the two, right?
Right, so nothing's happening with this other than it just being platted, and then that will become the right-of-way as McCabe goes through there?
Right. Well, I don't think you're not installing the road, I believe.
It's just so it's platted correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll let Joe.
I think the county wanted to close this, didn't they?
Correct.
And they asked us if we were interested in it. We saw value to having it.
That's correct.
So what it's doing is plotting the street to give it to us, and then they're keeping A1.
Correct. Eventually, we would look at redoing that street. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Schrader. I didn't mean to speak for you.
Nope.
Right. You okay?
No, we don't have a motion yet.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2020-20, a plat, a lot of 20s, on 4/20/2020. A plat of lots 1, 2, and 3 of Donald and Lois addition in the southwest quarter of Section 7, Township 104 North, Range 60 west of the 5th Prime Meridian, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, the planning commission did recommend approval. The location of this is just northwest of the ethanol plant, so that you can kind of get your bearings there. This is outside our zoning jurisdiction, but it's
Northeast.
within 3 miles plating jurisdiction. As you can kind of saw in both the plat and the aerial, they're subdividing into the 3 individual parcels. My understanding is they've made an application to the county for consideration of the plat, as well as I believe it requires a county variance. So, however, we're meeting before they are, and so hence that's why they thought it would be appropriate for us to deal with it to kind of keep the timing of the process going.
This is one of those, Neil, that
Yeah,
so we're subdividing, allowing people out in the county to subdivide so that they can come back maybe in the future and holler at the county that they allowed something to be built next to their house.
Yeah, I get.
It's got to go to the county next.
But because it's in our
Well,
3 mile area, that
right.
It comes to us. And
Yeah,
it's
the statute, the state
almost
law.
meaningless to us.
Yeah, the state law requires to go through. Now, there are some jurisdictions where both the city and the county do it
Right.
jointly, but
Not in this case.
Not in this case, no.
Do we need to approve this pending the county approval?
You could do it that way as well. You just wouldn't sign it until they approve it. You could do it that way.
I mean, what if we approve it, the county says no?
Right.
Well, then theirs would trump us, because if they don't approve it, they probably wouldn't sign the plat.
Well, we got it down.
What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion approved by Mr. Allen, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2020-21, a plat of Lot 1 of Schroeder Addition in the northeast quarter of Section 21, Township 104 North, Range 60 west of the 5th primary in Davis County, South Dakota.
Kind of the same situation. It is outside our zoning jurisdiction, just so that you get this, is just straight north of the airport. And as you can see in the aerial, that it was all one parcel, and they're just kind of, if you see in the aerial, you kind of see like a tree line or where the difference in the field. So it looks like that's probably what they're trying to follow.
It's just as you get to the top of the hill going north.
Yeah, but as you can kind
The
of see
next
with,
one, Stephanie.
Back one.
yeah, as you
There
can
you go.
kind of see the kind of a triangular change there in that aerial. Yeah. yeah,
Where
you
the
kinda
X
see
is,
the
yellow
field.
X,
Yeah,
right
you
there.
see where the field is, and that's the Plano Road just to the north.
Just as you go up the road from the airport, you climb the hill and you look over, that's
Just
it.
north of Rod
Yeah.
Vermillion.
Strip going through the bottom
Yep.
there.
Yeah.
But as you can kind of see the plat, it looks like it's somewhat following that.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2020-22, plat of Lot 3, Block 9 of Westwood First Edition, a subdivision of Block 4 of the Westwood First Edition in the northwest quarter, Section 16, Township 103 North, Range 60 west of the 5th prime meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Just to kind of save things, these are both in the same area. The only reason for both were approved by the Planning Commission, and this is part of where those two duplexes are being built. The only reason why they're two separate ones is, my guess is there'll be a separate transaction. And so and it looks like you can kind of see they're following the master plan that's submitted.
I do have one question, and Joe made the comment in the notes of the planning meeting that this area is now potentially considered a floodplain, and it needs to be studied or something. I guess, long-term, I would love it not to be a floodplain, because people have built houses there. And how does that process work, and what's the worst case that can come from this?
The worst case is that there's no changes to the map, and it will remain as Zone A, which which means it's in the 1% chance, storm.
But it would,
For flooding.
but it would be in that, right?
Correct. Now, it's my understanding, FEMA still allows building in that type of floodplain. They just need to be above a certain elevation, and then you wouldn't need the flood insurance.
And have we met the elevation on these? We don't know yet?
It's still preliminary. None of it's fine. And we've asked them to look at it further, and we've also asked for a detailed study, but none of that's guaranteed as well.
This
And we're also
is where we
looking-
find out where the 12 inches of rain hurt us last year.
Right. And you're looking at up to 3 years until this is finalized.
Move approval of 20-22.
Motion by Mr. Rice. Second, Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action on Resolution R 2020-23, plat of lots 2 and 4, Block 9 of Westwood, First Edition of subdivision of Block 4, Westwood, First Edition of the Northwest Quarter of Section 16, Township 103 North, Range 60 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota.
Again, same story as the previous one.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Charles.
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. First reading on ordinance O 2020-5, dumpster ordinance regarding metal refuse containers in right-of-way. Mr. Croce.
Mr. Mayor and Council, so we were approached by Public Safety. There was concern about dumpsters in the right-of-way, and we do allow dumpsters in the right-of-way if they're against the curb, basically in a parking spot in the roadway. For people that are doing demolition to their homes or apartments, this is okay. The concern was that they might not be able to be seen at night, so what we want to require is the reflective tape on the edges or ends of all the dumpsters that are placed there. I personally have not seen any dumpsters in those areas that have concern, or every dumpster that I've seen that's in the right-of-way by the private collectors, private haulers, have the reflective tape. They can choose whatever reflective tape they want. It would be preferable if it was a DOT Type 2, I believe is the number, but as long as it's reflective, as long as it's on the ends of the dumpster, and so it's visible for cars and people.
Kyle, I saw a dumpster in the street just recently with cones on each corner of the dumpster. Do cones count as a reflective measure?
The way this ordinance isn't written that way, we thought it was simple to have the reflective tape on the dumpster and not require any other kind of barricades or barriers. I don't know, maybe Justin would elaborate on that.
Yeah, the way the ordinance is written, just placing the cones around it would not satisfy the ordinance. I think there'd be some concerns about the level of reflectivity that you'll see out of a typical traffic cone. Whereas if you're requiring it on the container itself, you know that it's going to be, specifically showing the area where the actual object is. A cone can move
And so a lot of the cones that we use, they have the reflective tape, but they're placed for potholes and maybe for flooding. We have a lot of vehicle traffic that goes through potholes or goes over potholes and through flooding, and we wouldn't want them to mistake the same thing. The situation does have height and weight behind it, so that's why we're talking about reflective tape.
Would the city dumpsters require reflective tape also?
Yes, sir. If they were placed in the right-of-way against the curb, just like any other private hauler, the city would be required to have the reflective tape on theirs.
And we've had a problem? Is that why we're addressing this?
I personally have not had a problem. I know we had maybe questions through public safety or concerns for vehicles that are driving in and around those areas. Again, when I saw The dumpsters by the private hauler that I witnessed, there was no issue. They did have reflective tape, but this ensures good safety practice for us.
There is also some language in there that hopefully curtails them from being left in the street for long periods of time, longer than they'd need to be there, just to try to keep people moving along on their projects and not have things drag out and just have this thing sitting in the road indefinitely.
But we would give folks notice that it's time to get that dumpster out of there.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not like, I think we'll act on that now.
No, we'll definitely work with the private haulers.